He said, he didn't just say, knock on the door and say, excuse me, it's kind of hot outside. Would you mind if I borrowed a container of grapefruit juice? No, you knock on the door and say, I want my daddy's records. Sanford and Son, Blind Melon Jelly. I want my daddy's records. I want my daddy's sneakers. I want my daddy's cigar. I want my daddy's corn pipe. Everything that belongs to my daddy Jacob, I want back because I'm leaving tonight. That's right. That's right. That kind of boldness can only take place when you know how to prosper in the kingdom of Yahweh. We give in the kingdom, but outside the kingdom, we say, hey, you've had it long enough. Some of that's mine. Pour it into my life. Give it into my life. I want it back. Well, we have bad news for you. We can only lend you $100,000. Really? Well, I have bad news for you. I'm going to go somewhere else to lendingtree.com, and I'm going to borrow $200,000. And when I'm finished with that, I'm going to borrow $300,000 because everything you have is reserved for me, and I want, because the word of Yahweh says, we will plunder the heathen. Is that the word of Yahweh says? When we left Mitzrayim, we didn't just leave Mitzrayim. We demanded of the Mitzrites to turn over the clothes that their children were wearing to put it back on who? On our children. But guess what? If we are busy borrowing and lending with each other, then the principle of plundering the heathen will not be allowed. In order for the principle of plundering the heathen to be allowed, we must stop the practice of borrowing and lending inside the camp of Israel. If someone wants to lend you money to pay your rent, would you please read my lips? You're not doing them any favors. You're putting yourself under a financial curse by lending them the money, and you are taking the money and borrowing the provision, or whatever the provision may be, and you are also under a financial curse because the kingdom of Yahweh does not operate the way this world operates. So you're not doing them any favors. You either become a giver or send them to another giver. Can I hear a good amen? Go to Shemot, please. Stay in Shemot. 11 and 2. Shemot. It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood, a wonderful day in the neighborhood. I'm happy because I'm seeing the principles of how we are to conduct ourselves amongst ourselves when it comes to financial matters. Verse 2. Shemot 11:2. Speak now into the ears of the people, and let every man ask from his neighbor, and every woman from her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And Yahweh gave the people great financial favor in the sight of the Mitzrayim. So we see, we ask of the heathen, and Yahweh transfers the wealth of the heathen. Listen, in order to receive the wealth of the heathen, prerequisite time, you must live as Israel. Because Israel, the nation, was promised to plunder the heathen. You can't plunder the heathen and demand things of the heathen unless you are living like a Israelite. Does that make any sense? Moadim, Shabbat, Tzitzit, the sexual conduct of Israel and not the world. No adultery, no fornication, but other permissible avenues of sexual activity within the Commonwealth of Israel. If you live like an Israelite, you can demand and plunder the heathen. The reason right now the heathen are not responding is there are areas in our life that need to be lined up with an Israelite lifestyle. Then you can demand of the Israel. You can't be a Sunday morning church member and demand of the world sustenance when you don't have only Israel is above all nations. You've got to first show yourself in your halacha and in your derech to be Israel. Then you can begin to plunder the nations. Does any of this make sense? And it wasn't until I came into the Israelite truth and I walked as an Israelite that I became financially independent. I worked harder then when I was in the church than I do now. Much harder. And I had congregations. We said, well, Rabbi, that's easy. You collect our tithes. Well, let's turn that around. When I was a church pastor, I still had to work. So why wasn't it happening in the church? Because the church is not Israel. They're not walking as Israel. They may be part of Israel, but they don't know that they're Israel, so they have no right to demand of the heathen. Can I hear a good amen? Right. Praise Yahweh. Romia 13:8. Romia 13:8. When you live like an Israelite, then you can plunder the heathen. They were no longer slaves. They were about to become a nation, and in their exodus, they put in orders. I love it. My child needs sandals. My child needs a toga, whatever they were wearing in those days. Size this, size that, size this, upsize. Extras, you know. I mean, it's the chutzpah of our forefathers. I mean, today it would be chutzpah. It's like going to a church and saying, hi, are you here to worship Jesus? No, brother. I'm just here to collect some of what you have. I'm not going to use a gun. I'm not going to use a knife. I'm going to use the word of Yahweh, which is powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword. Hashem Yahweh. Look at Romia, chapter 13, verse 8. I know that. See, and I got to be careful. If you are a blessed individual, like most of us are as children of Israel, you got to be careful. Because whatever you ask for, Yahweh is going to give it to you, pressed over, shaken, and running over, men will give to your bosom. Okay, so if I asked you for money to build an orphanage, Yahweh would provide the money because I walk in His favor. You walk in His favor. It's just a matter of knowing the principles that this favor brings you. Don't worry, don't listen to the world. Well, brother, you shouldn't go into debt. Is that what the Torah says? That sounds great. We shouldn't go into debt. That sounds kosher. The only problem is that's not what the Torah says. The Torah says whatever you need, the world has. You let me worry about the world getting paid back. But make sure you don't borrow from your brother. Make sure that you don't lend to your brother, or you don't become a borrower in Israel, that you are a giver, or if you can't give, refer that person to another giver. Can it get any easier than that? Romia 13:8. Because don't worry about owing somebody $300,000. Guess what? Yahweh may decide to end the world in the next 30 years and you're home free. You're home in Jerusalem and their debt is in the lake of fire. So I don't worry about paying people back. If I have to borrow, I'll borrow because I figured it's not their money. I'm Israel. I'm the head, not the tail. I'm above, not beneath. Deuteronomy 28:12. And Yahweh's opening the windows of heaven and I'm just saying, hey, I need this, I need this, and I need this, and what's the best deal I can get? Will they ever get paid back? Sure, as long as I'm alive, we will make good on our debt. But if I'm borrowing from the world, I'll be able to pay the world back. But if I'm borrowing from my brother and sister, you ain't never gonna pay me back. You ain't never gonna pay me back. Don't give me that righteous look. Amen. You know why you can't pay me back? Because nobody ever told you to borrow money from me. You were told to borrow from the world. Very interesting perspective, isn't it? Very interesting perspective. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. But of course you need wisdom and discernment. You don't want to go into piles of debt. You still need wisdom and discernment, even when you borrow from the world. So Israel has to walk as Israel to receive the authority to demand from the world and to properly regulate giving in Israel. Not lending and borrowing, which is forbidden in Israel, but rather giving. Romans, Romia 13:8. Is anyone enjoying? How about in the lobby? Is anyone enjoying? Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Thank you, Rena. This is liberation theology, man. Not the stuff Jeremiah Wright teaches. This is liberation theology. This is true liberation theology. Hear me out. Romia 13:8. Owe no man anything. It's talking about in the Kehillah of Yahweh. But love one another. For he that loves one another has fulfilled the obligation of the Torah and the giving heart of the Torah. So it says we should not owe anybody in the Kehillah anything except love. You owe it to me to love me even with all my warts and faults. I owe it to you to love you even with all your warts and faults. But other than mutual respect and mutual love, we are to owe each other, meaning the Commonwealth of Israel, we are to owe each other can it be any owe nobody nothing? And like the suckers we are, what did P.T. Barnum say? What did P.T. Barnum say? There's a sucker born every what? Every minute. So we give to somebody, and then somebody winds up owing somebody, and they're in a slave relationship, taking the authority of Yeshua in their life financially, and then all of a sudden what happens? Slavery. And now we owe somebody owes somebody, and someone is now a lord to a poor slob who's a borrower and has no way to pay his brother or sister in Israel back. It says don't owe anybody in the Kehillah anything except respect, reverence, and love. Simple. We owe it to each other to learn how to love each other. And don't tell me we know how. No, we don't. Growing in Yeshua is part of learning how to love. It's a process. Todah Rabah Yahweh. The word borrower in Hebrew is the word lava. Not love, but lava. L-A-V-A-H. So Yahweh says in the Kehillah of Romia, don't owe anybody anything. Just love each other, respect each other, and forgive each other, forbear with each other, but don't owe anybody in the Kehillah anything. The word lava, or borrower, means to, listen to this, to unite with, remain with, be obliged to, abide with, cleave to, join with, slavery with no rights. Want to be a borrower? Here's what you are, darling. Have you borrowed money recently from someone in the Kehillah? Here's what you are. Hebrew lava means to unite with, to be obliged to abide with, to cleave to join with a slave having no rights. Exactly opposite of what we learned today in Shnat HaYovel and Shemitah, which is the year of release, which is the Jubilee of release, exactly opposite of what we learned earlier today. True? True? That's the Hebrew word. Can it get any more descriptive than that in the Hebrew? A slave with no rights, cleaving to slavery, abiding with, joining with slavery. Pardon me. So when Yahweh took us out of Mitzrayim, we were not in slavery anymore. But every time you borrow money or you lend money, you're making a slave, reversing the miraculous exodus from Egypt. I know what I'm talking about. And it's to your shame, because you didn't know any better. But now you know. What does Torah mean? Come and let the rabbi condemn you so you feel bad? No. It means instruction, so you learn and you don't make the same mistakes again. Because we are not to create slaves, we are to create disciples for Yeshua. We are to minister to one another the sincere milk of the word of Yahweh, that we may grow thereby. Kifa Aleph 2:2. That's what we are to do. We can't nurture and admonish someone that we feel is not repaying us and owing us money, and they're a slave, and we can pressure them and call them and threaten them and manipulate them, and you can't even sit next to the person, and the reason you don't even want to have coffee with the person is because they've borrowed money, and you've been silly enough to lend them money because you didn't know the principles of Torah in Israel, and now you're angry at the poor slob who borrowed money, when you should be angry at yourself. But that's okay, we all learn. That's okay, we all learn, we grow. We grow. Baruch Hashem. But if you do it this way, oh, there's a brother who can't pay his rent, here's what I'm going to do, brother. What's the name of your landlord? Hibiscus and Sons? How much is your rent? Huh? How much? Who do I make the check out? That's how the kingdom operates. I'm not saying turn a deaf ear. Just give. And I think those of you who have been here for 3, 4, 5 years, you know that I practice what I preach. I've never lent you money. No one in this congregation have I lent. There's one person who worked it off because he works for me. I've never lent one of you a penny. I've given you money and never asked for it back. Not because I'm great, because I learned the principles of the Torah. That's why I have no money problems. That's why I'm going on vacation another 2 days this week. And I plan on going every week of the summer. Bye! I'll be the dude on the beach. That's me, the fat boy on the beach. With the bald head. That's me. Don't pray about it. It's me. Don't catch me. I caught the rabbi at the beach. You didn't have to catch me. It's me. Because I learned the principle. Rivka and I didn't always know this principle. We used to lend people money, and then of course when they didn't pay us back, they left the congregation, and we wanted them to leave the congregation. No, man. If you got to lend money, find a heathen and get them to lend you the money. For the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the righteous. Be careful who teaches you his Torah. Be careful. Be careful. Yahweh wanted the pagan practice, listen very carefully. Yahweh wanted the pagan practice of lending and borrowing removed from Israel. So he removed the money motive in Israel, declaring that since there is no money motive in Israel, all practices that are money motivated or money producing, income producing, should cease. What do I mean? Go with me to Devarim, you'll see. Yahweh has removed in Torah the money motive or the profit motive for his children. Devarim 23:19. How do I make a living? I sell products. I sell products. That's cool. Because I work hard, I write them, I edit them, I labor over them, and then I sell them. But I'm certainly not borrowing people's money. I'm not borrowing. They pay for the product. 23:19. They're not lending me their money. They're giving me their money. They're purchasing. Deuteronomy 23:19. Now let's get this principle down. I'm going to go a little bit slow. Not that I am slow, but I'm going to go a little bit slow to make sure we all get this. Devarim 23:19. You shall not lend with interest to your Israelite brother. You shall not lend at all, but especially with interest. Interest of money, interest of food, interest of anything that is lent upon interest. Look at me. Number one, you shouldn't be lending.